So Jen Psaki was on a podcast called Mixed Signals, right? And this is a part of Semaphore. Ben Smith and Max Tanny are asking Jen Psaki about Biden's decline, what she knew, what she did not know. Now, I just want to remind you that Jen Psaki, remember, she was Joe Biden's press secretary, right? And she didn't stay through the whole administration. Corinne came in later. In fact, Jen Psaki highly recommended Corinne, said she would do a good job. But she was there in the beginning, and I want you to hear what she says. This is laughable. I just gotta laugh.
Your old boss, Joe Biden, is, going to be in the news again, or is starting to be in the news again because the time has elapsed between the campaign, and now we're getting some of the books that have come out. Yes, there's a lot of books to be. There's a lot of books to be sold. Yes, exactly. Of which I'm sure you've gotten a lot of calls from those reporters 6 months ago, and now that's starting to bear fruit. I guess I was really curious. You mentioned this on Dylan Byers' podcast, and I wanted to kind of draw something out a little bit further from it, which is, you mentioned how there was a moment in between the debate between Biden and Trump and when Biden dropped out, in which you said that Biden probably didn't have a path forward, and that was kind of a difficult thing for you to kind of do, as obviously someone who had defended him and his administration and been a very visible face within his administration. I mean, I'm curious what that moment was like for you, and what the reaction was from your colleagues, many of whom were still in the White House, or felt that Biden shouldn't drop out.
Well, we can roll the tape, but I don't think I said it was difficult to do. I just think I acknowledged that there was a reaction from people who were strong Biden supporters online.
Wait, sorry, that wasn't difficult to do. When
I don't think that's what I stated. I don't think I've said that. I wouldn't describe it that way. I mean, I think, when it really started with the debate and watching the debate, and watching the debate, I remember thinking halfway through, and I think I said anyone watching would have thought this, said to my colleagues, because I was about to go do hours of television afterwards, like, this is a fucking disaster, right?
So let me just say what Jen Psaki's not going to say, because she wants to maintain her job and her status in DC. Joe Biden, the first time I saw a decline from Joe was during the Democrat primary debates in 2020. That was the first time. Remember, there was like 20 people running at that point in time. And I remember him going on this rant about kids need to sit in front of record players and all this. Don't also forget about, what's the guy's name who he said was a lifeguard? And he's Corn Pop. He went on this whole rant about some dude named Corn Pop. Like that was the first time I started to see the decline. So before he was president. Now, Jen Psaki was Joe Biden's press secretary in the beginning. So she saw him a lot more than we did. I mean, I saw him on television. She saw him in person. So you mean to tell me that she didn't see anything? Nothing in front of her kind of sent off alarm bells as to, wait a minute, Joe may not have it all together. He may be experiencing some type of decline here. Come on. Jen is going to say what works out best for her, because she knows how Washington works. She's very familiar, and she knows that if she says something that's too critical, or if she says that, yes, I did know, she's done. Done in Washington. She can probably go get a job somewhere else, but she would be done in Washington.
It was, of course. And then afterwards, we all went on television, and I don't remember exactly how I phrased it, but I think I said what I had seen, right? Which was that I didn't say fucking, because you can't say that on MSNBC, but some version of that. I didn't know what was going to happen from there. I don't think anybody exactly did. It just became clear. And what I started saying on television was, I'm talking to a lot of Democrats who are saying, it's like, it's not for me to determine if he has a path forward, that there is not a path forward, right? That they don't see a path forward. And that was more what I tried to stay centered in every day, was who I was actually, I've been in this town, I've worked in Democratic politics for a long time, what people privately were telling me, which was an indication of where this was headed. the reaction, and still to this day, I will tell you, you can't look at Twitter, you can't look at people's replies because you'll be hiding under your desk. Anyone would be. But sometimes they pop up. I'm like, I don't know how to turn off some of these. So like, and it's like to this day, you know, it's like the new show is announced and I have people like, I will never watch her show. She stabbed Joe Biden in the face, you know? And it's like, I didn't determine the past.
Yeah. Right.
So she admits here publicly that people told her privately that he was done, right? Like he doesn't have a path forward. But yet every day she came on to MSNBC, every day that she did her show on MSNBC, every day that she did that show, she convinced you that he did have a path forward. See, this is Jen Psaki telling on herself without realizing that she's actually really telling on herself. Because if you were told by people, insiders, that he did not have a path forward, and you knowingly did your show on MSNBC and you told everybody that he did and they should support him, then that makes you a liar. Not a journalist. That makes you a liar. Aye.
I'm telling you what Democrats who are telling me, including people on the campaign I was talking to at the time. So that was my experience in the moment. You know, I think what I also, this is where it's like, I hope I can continue to be a contributor in this way to the conversation, is like, there also can be a leap to, well, it's going to be Kamala Harris and nobody's going to challenge her, right? Including on cable television conversations. And I was like, maybe, or maybe not. Do you remember that period of time where we didn't exactly know? It's like, well, the DNC is saying this is how the process is going to go. Is it going to go that way? I have no idea. But yeah, I think it was difficult because this was as difficult about that period of time. Yes, random people, who cares, who are messaging me, but I care about him personally, right? I like him as a person. And there were people, I didn't actually hear from them, honestly. They didn't reach out to me to say they were pissed, to say anything at the time. They knew.
But to go back before that, I mean, I think that like when
but hold on. But you knew. But you knew as his press secretary, you knew Biden was struggling. You knew he was having difficulty. So she's trying to pretend like she didn't know anything about this. Are you kidding me? All of them are. Jake Sullivan's got a book coming out. Not Jake Sullivan, Jake Tapper. Jake Tapper has a book coming about like, oh, the lies of Biden and how he hid from us the truth. And oh my God, we were misled. Get the fuck out of here, Jake. All these people talk to each other in DC. They all run in the same circle. All these people know each other. They all knew that Joe Biden was struggling. They knew that Joe Biden was on the decline. But the rule was, let's keep it quiet. Mom's the word. Keep it quiet. Don't say anything. Keep it quiet. And any one of them that would have spoken up at that time, they probably wouldn't still have that job. CNN and MSNBC would have came up with another reason or whatever why they had to let them go. But they knew. That's why I say don't call them journalists. They're told what to say. They're puppets.
At least for a time when the history of this period is sort of written and understood, I think there's a consensus that the media generously missed and ungenerously covered up Joe Biden's frailty. And I just want to read you something Ezra said in, oh gosh, this is like the Ezra Klein show readout now. But Ezra said in February 2024, so this is while, during the presidency, I have this nightmare that Trump wins in 2024 and then in 2025 and 2026, out come the campaign tell-all books. And they're full of emails and WhatsApp messages between Democratic staffers and Democratic leaders where they're all saying to each other, this is a disaster. He's not going to win this. I can't bear to watch this speech. We're going to lose. But they didn't say any of it publicly. They didn't do anything because it was too dangerous for their careers, too uncomfortable, given their loyalty to Biden. I mean,
and it was dangerous for her career too. I feel like this is what I feel like this is what he's hinting at. It was dangerous for Jen Psaki's career too.
It feels like where we are. And what do you make of that question? Did the White House cover this up? Did the media cover this up? Like, what, just sort of in retrospect, and you weren't in the White House in those later moments, but how do you read this? I mean, something I feel I have complicated feelings about, but I'm curious what you think.
I mean, I obviously do too. I think cover up is such a loaded phrase. But I also, to your point, I left in May of 2022, just for the facts here. And I have seen Biden once since then, when I took my daughter to the holiday party this last December after he had lost.
We saw decline in 2021, Jen. Your hands are not clean. We saw decline in 2021. That didn't happen just the last year or so. So she's trying to excuse herself. You guys get this? Let me take myself out of this equation. I don't know nothing about nothing. I know nothing about nothing.
And so I hadn't seen him in person during that period of time. I never saw that person, not a single time. And I was in the Oval Office every day that was on that debate stage.
You guys know this woman is lying, right? So if you were wondering how often she saw him, she just told you. Every day she says she was in the Oval Office. I never saw that person. Now, if you did, it's not like you're going to tell us that you did. You know, it just, you know, because she wants her hands to be clean.
I'm not a doctor. Aging happens quite quickly. Were things that people saw during that period of time that were similar to that, or would have been in a category of that? I don't know, possibly, right? And all these books are going to tell us.
But let's sort of take it in two pieces. First, like your old colleagues, like, I mean, and you talk to these folks, I talk to these folks, like, do you think that they were?
It's funny, you know, this one part, and I'll go back to this. It's funny, now nobody's a doctor, right? But during the pandemic, everybody was. Now all these commentators are like, I'm not a doctor. When it comes to Biden's mental decline, I don't know. I'm not a doctor. But during the pandemic, all of you mofos were acting like doctors. I'm sorry. I call it like I see it.
Were they actively covering it up? Were they sort of in denial, or was that just a bad debate? Like, what is your read on that?
Well, this is what I mean about cover up is a very loaded term, I think.
Well, it means you knew that it was really bad and you're pretending otherwise, versus you're deluding yourself, which I think is what people do a lot.
Well, I understand, but I still think it's like cover up is often like a crime, right? We're talking, when people use that term.
They say it's worse than the crime.
People use that term as they relate to Watergate, or the covering up of not sharing public information about a war.
Yeah, and I'm not accusing anybody of a crime.
I understand, but other people have used that term, and I think it's a bit of a dangerous term. I don't know. I have not talked to them, any of the people in these books, about this particular question. You know, I think that at their root, a lot of the people who are mentioned are good human beings. And so I like to think that, no, they would not be a part of an active, let's hide from the public what we see happening privately. And I don't know the facts of what was happening privately.
Right. And then what about us? Like you, I guess you and me in the media now. Were we, I mean, I think I wrote about his age once or twice, got beat up on social media, but also didn't really feel like it particularly moved the needle. I mean, do you feel like we were too tentative writing about it? It's a sensitive thing to write about. I mean, and it was hard to report, or do you think I don't know, should we have been more aggressive about it in 23, 24 as a story? Because it obviously, in retrospect, pretty big story.
Well, what I don't know, Ben, and maybe we'll learn from these books, is what the facts were behind the scenes. So what the media missed, and maybe the media missed a lot. And so maybe in retrospect, which is always easier to be critical of the media about, frankly, right? There were major stories and moments missed. What I think is challenging, if you don't know about what's happening privately, right, is that Joe Biden was in his early 80s during that period of time. We all knew his age. That was not a secret. What was happening behind the scenes, I don't know. What was also true that I would find actually a little tricky if you're a reporter of any kind, is that while we know there were problematic things behind the scenes now in 23 and 24, there was an aggressive all-out pitching operation from the right wing and from the Republicans about Joe Biden's age and how he was in decline and like sleeping in the Oval Office, a lot of which wasn't true, most of which, the majority of which wasn't true in 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, right?
The things that I have mentioned about Joe Biden and others have mentioned about Joe Biden that I've discussed before on the show are not things that supposedly happen privately. They're things that happen publicly, okay? These are things that we saw. The incidents that I referred to about the statements that he made at the 2020 Democrat primary debate stage happened on national television, okay? I'm not the only one who sat there and heard him randle about some dude named Corn Pop. It's not just me. The incidents that we've shown before on this show of him falling up the stairs, him falling off a bike when he's just not even riding the bike, he's just on the bike, him forgetting people's names, him shaking the wrong hand of a person instead of the prime minister. Remember that? Like, there was a number of things that were public. I couldn't really talk about what happened privately because those things weren't revealed. I showed and discussed the things that happened publicly. And it wasn't just people on the right who were talking about it. There were lefties who were talking about it. So here's the talking point. Oh, it was only the conservatives who were saying these things. Bullshit. There were a number of left independent media people like myself who said, what the hell is wrong with Joe Biden? Public incidents. She wants to bring up things that people talked about may have happened privately. What happened in front of your face? That's what a lot of us focused on. What we saw happen publicly. DC is a hell of a drug, man. It's a hell of a town. And once you're there and you're in those spaces, it's like if you don't move the way that the DNC or the GOP wants you to move, you will be a nobody in that town very quickly. And you'll have to go back to, if you didn't grow up in DC, which a lot of people did not, whatever town you came from and try to like recoup something there. It's so obvious. You don't get this. You don't go from being his press secretary to the MSNBC gig if you're not praising and applauding the person you just worked for, who is the president of the United States. When I tell you there's so much control, there's so much control. However, one thing I want to bring up, and this is an older vid, but people need to see this. With all the focus on Joe Biden's mental capability, there was a video that Mehdi Hasan made years ago about the lies. Because it's like, at this point, we get it. Joe Biden had mental decline. Many of us saw this years ago, not just yesterday, not just during that freaking presidential debate against him and Donald Trump that was hosted by CNN. Many of us saw this years ago, as do, I will say, I believe, Jen Psaki as well. But the lies. Jen Psaki, weren't you there when Joe Biden said that he marched with these civil rights leaders? He didn't march with no damn civil rights leaders. Do you not remember that? That was public. That wasn't private, Jen. So Mehdi Hasan brought this up. I want you guys to see this. And I have my issues with Mehdi Hasan too, because he said all this shit about Gaza and save Gaza and free the people and all that jazz. And in the end, he wanted to attack the very candidates who were pro-Palestine and were not a part of this two-party system. So Mehdi Hasan is also, you got to understand that he's also a part of that Democrat DC apparatus as well. And he wants to maintain that. But he has a point here. Listen to this.
Why does Joe Biden make so much stuff up? And will it hurt him against Trump in the general election? There's much talk online, especially among Bernie Sanders supporters, about whether Joe Biden is in cognitive decline, whether he has dementia, why he's so incoherent. Now, I'm no doctor. I'm not going to make a medical diagnosis, apart from to say that in terms of his speech and his memory, there's clearly undeniably been a lot of decline in recent years.
My name's Joe Biden. I'm a Democratic candidate for the United States Senate.
But today, forget the weird stuff that Biden says that doesn't make any sense.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by go. You know the thing.
Forget all of that, though, and focus on his falsehoods. The fact that he just makes stuff up, that he does seem to be a fabulist. Here are just 5 examples. Number 1, his arrest in apartheid South Africa. The former vice president said 3 times during the month of February alone that he got arrested trying to see Nelson Mandela in prison.
I had the great honor of meeting him. I had the great honor of being arrested with our UN ambassador on the streets of Soweto trying to get to see him on Robbins Island.
Except,
wasn't Psaki around during that time? That did not happen. Like, what is it? Like, come on. Even like during his campaigning, she wasn't press secretary during his campaigning, but she followed and covered all of this stuff. Like, what the hell? You don't remember these lies?
it's a lie. Biden himself was forced to fess up on CNN.
When I said arrested, I meant I was not able to move. Cops, Afrikaners would not let me go with them, made me stay where I was. I guess I wasn't arrested, I was stopped.
To be clear, he didn't misspeak, he didn't misremember, it wasn't a gaffe, it was a lie, and a really bad one, because he even claimed at one point last month that Mandela later thanked him for getting arrested. Number 2, there's the silver star that never was. Over the years, Biden has told a moving but false war story in speeches and at rallies. He did it in New Hampshire last August.
This guy climbed down a ravine, carried this guy up on his back under fire, and the general wanted me to pin the silver star on him. I got up there and stand and said, God's truth, my word is a Biden. He stood at attention. I went to pin.
Pause. Look at the date. August 23rd, 2019. Again, before he was president. This is what I was trying to tell people. He was not with it. This guy was making shit up.
And I said, sir, I don't want the damn thing. Do not pin it on me, sir. Please, sir. Do not do that. He died. He died.
He didn't pin the medal on the guy, who wasn't a Navy captain. He just made it up. And Biden has told this story time and again over the years, changing the details in it ever so slightly on each occasion. So sorry, it's not a gaffe. It's pure misrepresentation. Then there's Iraq, where the former vice president says he only voted for the war because the Bush administration tricked him.
I made a mistake. I said it 14 years ago. I trusted George Bush to keep his word. He said he was not going to go into Iraq.
Except,
did you see the date for that? The date for that one, go back a little, is February 7th, 2020. Again, before he was president. All of these commentators have been tricking people, trying to make them believe that this stuff just happened with Joe Biden. Like, this dude was lying prior to his presidency. It was so obvious. I was like, what is happening here? The media would say, oh, it was just a gaffe. No, he was a liar. So if my thing is be fair, if you're going to call out Trump telling lies, call out Biden telling lies. They don't do that. It's not Walter Cronkite anymore. The news isn't that anymore. It's all like team Republican, team Democrat. They're on political teams.
except Biden was calling for war with Saddam Hussein in 1998.
The only way we're going to get rid of Saddam Hussein, and it's going to require guys like you in uniform to be back on foot in the desert, taking taking Saddam down.
He also says now that he opposed the Iraq
That was Scott Ritter, by the way.
war as soon as it started.
From the moment shock and awe started, from that moment, I was opposed to the effort and I was outspoken.
A complete fabrication. Here he is several months after the invasion began, praising both the war and George Bush.
Some of my own party have said that it was a mistake to go to Iraq in the first place. But the cost of not acting against Saddam, I think, would have been much greater. The President of the United States is a bold leader and he is popular.
Again, Biden just makes stuff up. He makes demonstrably false claims without an iota of shame. Number 4, there's Biden's role in the civil rights movement, which is pretty easy to summarize. He didn't have one.
When I marched in the civil rights movement, I marched with tens of thousands of others to change attitudes. And we changed attitudes.
It's when I was about the age of the guy
1988, now 2019.
standing over there. I got involved in the civil rights movement.
He knows it's untrue. Don't take my word for it. Take his.
I was not an activist. I was not out marching. I was not down in Selma. I was not anywhere else.
Imagine as a white guy lying about your role in the civil rights struggle. Finally, you all know that Biden had to quit his 1988 campaign after he was caught plagiarizing parts of his stump speech. But Biden also lied about his grades.
I think I probably have a much higher IQ than you do, I suspect. The first year in law school, I decided I didn't want to be in law school and ended up in the bottom 2/3 of my class, and then decided I wanted to stay, went back to law school, and in fact ended up in the top half of my class.
In fact, he graduated 76th in a law school class of 85 students. Oh dear, pretending that you're smarter than you are and inflating your academic success.
Him and Trump did the same thing on that one. So come on. So when Jen Psaki says, "Oh, I didn't know," are you kidding me? I think one of the worst out of all those is lying that you participated in the civil rights movement when you didn't. They knew. They all knew. Just like you knew. How do you know? And they didn't know. And they worked there with him. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.